And life is full of discovery. And maybe that's the most important thing I learned about the schooner, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I never built a big boat before.
We were heeled over, we're moving, and whitecaps were on the water, and all of a sudden the front block and tackle that held the jib just exploded. And the jib sail was cracking wildly through the wind, and the kids were like, "Wah!" I think he was 70-something at the time, and crawls himself out onto the spit of the ship, grabs the block and tackle, and ties the whole thing back together, and comes back, and the kids were just like, like, I can't believe he just did that. And he said, well, I made the thing. Like, I know how to, there's nothing about this boat that I don't know about because I've made it all from my hands. And as he went about the boat, it was kind of funny. The kids would be like, yeah, but you bought that, right? You're like, no, I made that. Well, but you're like, somebody else made it. You're like, no, I made that. As he went through each part, I think that was a turning point for a lot of them. Like, this guy's for real. Like, he knows more about the ship than anybody.
That vessel used to it was beautiful. It used to slice through the water with the sails up and whatnot, and it was just always a pleasure, always well maintained.
And it was just amazing. It was so, you see all the speed boats and the power boats and everything, and all of a sudden here's this two-masted schooner.
There wasn't any question. I'm going to build this damn boat.
People say, don't you get tired of going around the same lake all the time? And we always say no, because we never see the same thing twice. But that was one of those things that we always looked forward to seeing.
It looked like a pirate ship or something, out there.
I bet you I saw that vessel 100 times or more. And each time was just as exciting as the previous time.
In younger days, he built a boat, 40 feet long and 2 tall masts. Named it Peter Atwood.
If you've ever seen a gaff rig schooner, she said, oh, the wooden boat? And I said, yes. And she said, it's got somebody's name on it. I said, yes, that was my husband's.
So we have a pagan ceremony of launching vessels. We crack what is either a vial of champagne or ritual blood as an initiation to the life of the boat. And where she ends is sometimes up to us and sometimes not.
When it finally did vanish from the lake, we were all we were missing something. In our little world, it was almost like losing, not quite the old man of the mountain, but it was a part of the lake. When we'd get down to the south end of the lake, we always looked forward to seeing it.
The beauty to me is in the story and in the roots of its inception and the connection to his love for another human being. And then it becomes beautiful in his use of it. How are we to be used?
Mistake is something from which you learn nothing. If you're not going to learn from a mistake, then why did you bother to make it? If you do something poorly and learn something from it, how can it be a mistake? Okay, so my job is to give you an opportunity to screw up.
His ultimate goal, I would say, is to get kids learning. And he didn't think that was really taking place in classrooms.
Why is school quiet and clean and neat? Learning is messy and time-consuming and energy use and dirty and noisy.
And so he said he wanted to start a whole alternate education on kids learning how to learn and taking them out of the classroom environment, out of their comfort zone. And that was the beginning of Operation Live, learning in vigorous environments.
Operation Live program, we used to come up here as one of our weekends about 3 or 4 times a year. We were looking for some large group hands-on projects to work on. And here was this hulk, just the ribs, no planking. So we found out that the ex-apprentice was willing to sell the boat as it stand plus some wood for $1,500. We got it moved to Keene by Peter Atwood. And I counted the number of people who helped me in 6 or 7 years building the schooner. 52 different people.
When we have kids do this, we almost insist that they use hand tools, because
Too fast.
it's too fast, and you really don't have to know much about wood to be able to get away with this, but once in a while you get in a jam with it.
You're not building a boat. You're building you. We're using the boat as an excuse to work with you. And to do that, I need to be honest and straightforward and hard to get along with and a real bastard and stop fooling around, because life is important.
So one of the educators that we met along the way was Keith King. And Keith has a sailboat, the Atwood, up at Lake Winnipesaukee, and taking kids on that boat is a huge experience, and especially for kids in rural upstate New York, to be on that size of a boat was a big deal.
If you think you can motivate somebody to learn, then you are treating them as if you are responsible for their behavior, and that is against the rules of good teaching.
Being a part of this program called the Trailblazers was also making a commitment that you were going to stay substance-free for the time. It was sort of the trade-off. You make a commitment to stay substance-free, and the trade-off is that we'll provide these pretty incredible adventures. And I think from right at the beginning, the kids knew that this was going to be a very, very different experience.
When you showed up on my boat, welcome aboard the Peter M Atwood, it's just going to, you may do anything you want to on this boat. I am not responsible for you. But please don't surprise me. Let me know that you're planning or thinking about doing something.
The kids could say, can I do this? And he'd say, I don't know, can you?
Example, let's go back to the schooner. On the foremast, there were a set of shrouds, which are cables this far apart that go from here to the top of the mast, which was 37 feet off the deck. No, 32 feet foremast. And in between those shrouds, there was a rattlin, which was a piece of rope tied around here, over to here, and another one. So it was a rope ladder, rattlins.
One of the boys said, well, I want to climb to the top. What's this ladder? I want to climb up there. And Keith said, whoa, here's what you need to know about that. And if you want to climb there, and he's like, really? Like, I can really climb to the top of that?
Within 10 minutes of dropping the mooring, I would almost guarantee that at least one kid is going to say, can I climb that? Well, that's the reason it's there. And I would say, well, what did I say? You can do anything. It's your boat. No, it's your legs. Blood doesn't bother me a bit, particularly if it's yours. Have you really considered the consequence of your climbing that thing?
This is what might happen if you do that. And I honestly think the kid was shocked that he was even given an opportunity.
If I screw up, I'm willing to pay the price. And I got to treat you the same way.
From that moment on, the kid was riveted to KB and realized that this guy was something different. The adults in their life really didn't believe that they could handle the consequences of their own choice.
One of the troubles with our society is that people are not able or willing or capable of holding themselves accountable for their decisions.
Kids who are protected and aren't really given a chance to feel the consequence seek artificial risk-taking. And so one of the things that is brilliant about Keith is that he just gives over this permission to take your own risks.
That was Keith's ultimate goal. Get you out of your comfort zone. Get you thinking. If I get you thinking, when you get back in your comfort zone, maybe you'll continue. Yeah, this is it. You better be living now. And that was always his philosophy.
So my job there is to make sure that they have considered, they've done a good job in making a decision. Not made a good decision, because that's a value statement. A good job in making the decision. So I can be responsible to you, but I refuse and I cannot be responsible for you. Well, I'm not interested in catching you. I'm interested in helping you catch yourself. Peter Atwood came to Keene when I was coaching 4-event skiing, men and women. He showed up when we called for the ski team.
Pete lived to ski and just became so attached to KV.
He was maybe 6'2", 6'1", 180, 190 pounds.
Just very athletic, could not sit still. Very, very hard to sit still. He always had to be doing and moving.
He was very serious about skiing, much more serious than a lot of the people who were on the ski team.
He just loved it, and he loved for people to want to ski. And then, of course, when I became a skier, then it was just great fun.
Eventually, he ended up winning the Ski Meister, both in the Dartmouth Carnival and the Middlebury Carnival. So he was really an unbelievably nice kid.
Pete would have struggled more in finding what he really wanted to do with himself if it hadn't been for KV.
He was just one of those guys that was always there at the right time and did most of the time he did the right things.
KV was a constant, a real constant. And I think KV came into Pete's life at the right time.
His culture was Harvard and Yale or Middlebury or Dartmouth. You could do well in that league. Why the hell do you bother to come to Keene? And he says, I was wondering when you were going to ask me that. I came to Keene because I understood there was a guy named Keith King there. And I said, holy shit, I got to stop. What a hell of a compliment. Kept me awake for quite a while.
In many ways, KV was like a father figure to him.
When he graduated, Mary and I went to his wedding. I'm a godfather to his 2 children.
Peter was born in February of 1973. Barbie came along on July 3rd, 1974.
When he left Keene, he started a business of taking down, ripping apart old colonial houses and saving the newel posts and the door frames and stuff like that.
We moved to Kensington, New Hampshire, down just outside of Exeter. Bought a nice big old farm built in the 1720s with a huge barn so he could have his dismantled houses stacked up and doors and hinges and all. It was a big barn, so, and he was totally happy.
He drove the schooner from where I picked it up in Bath to Keene on his trailer one February.
KV found that it was available, so called Pete, who had a trailer that he pulled behind his truck that he used for bringing house parts back home to the barn.
The schooner was down here in the far edge of this grass, and we dragged it up here and over a big snowbank and put it on from the snowbank onto the back trailer.
I remember when he went, the morning he left to go up to get the boat and came back late that night. They'd gone and got the boat, taken it to Keene.
He refused to even let us pay its toll to bring it back to Keene. That's the way kind of a kid he was.
I thought, you're crazy. So, but
you're crazy to go get a boat, or
crazy to go in this weather or something. I just remember saying to him, are you really going? He said, I am. So off they went. It's terrible to watch somebody die of an illness, but in a sense, you know it's coming. You know, just one fine day to get a call.
He was working on the top of a first floor wall, knocking down floor beams for the second floor. And I don't know the exact mechanics of what happened, but he fell off that perch and draped himself over the end of a 2x8, which was vertical, and he bled to death on the operating table, ruptured his liver. That was hard.
Pete died on June 3rd, 1980. And he left that morning early, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and said goodbye before he left. And I remember saying to him, because they were dismantling a house in Newmarket, New Hampshire, not far from where we were. I remember saying, be careful, because I knew the house, the roof was gone, everything, so they were working with the frame. And I said to him, be careful, because it's been raining all night and the beams are going to be slippery. And he said, I know, I'll see you later. So, but then he didn't see me later. They took him to the Exeter Hospital, which is only, I'm going to say 6 or 8 miles from where the accident happened. I was with another doctor who was a good friend of Pete's, and his wife was a good friend of mine. He said, what's she doing here? And Casey said, operating room. So he went in and said, well, now what's Atwood done to himself? And Peter Freeze, the surgeon, said he's dead. So.
And how old were your kids?
Peter had turned 7 at the end of February, so he was just 7, and Barbie was a month away from being 6. She turned 6 on July 3rd of that year, so they were very little. If you can't live to raise your children, you hope somebody else will step in and do it.
When we were finished getting close to the end, I found out you ought to name a boat after a person, not a thing.
It never occurred to me that he would name it after Pete. I mean, I didn't think about who he would name it after, obviously, but when he told me, I remember thinking, oh, it wasn't something I had anticipated. Of course, I was very grateful to him for doing that, and so were the kids.
So I got a hold of Doris and asked her, not permission, but she said, yeah, Peter would like that. So we call it the Peter M Atwood.
I remember thinking how delighted he would be, and I do remember swinging the bottle of champagne, but that's really all I remember. It's funny, I remember that so well. He would have been just thinking, that's the best. That's just the best. KV, you really did it. Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm 33,000+ days old. And right now I'm living day at a time and having a hell of a good day some of the time. And I don't know why we are so many years old. We ought to be so many days old, or at least months.
People say to me, oh, just wait till you get old. You're going to be miserable, or you're going to be horrible. And I just turn to him and I say, I have different role models. I have very different role models for aging.
It takes care of itself. Well, okay.
Different people that are in my life at different phases of their life right now. Some of them are holding on to nostalgia, and they're trying to live in the past, and they're stuck.
Which cleat?
Either one.
Not knowing this boat, I don't know where to stop there.
Looks pretty good.
He puts himself out into the world like that too. He doesn't look at himself as, oh, I'm at the end. Although he's quite aware that that end might come at any moment. But why sit around and wait for it? Right? Live right through the ending of it. And I really admire elders who are able to do that.
Now, this is the way I do it. I don't know how you do it.
Yesterday was Father's Day, and he told us that he had gotten up at 4:30 and gone to the ocean to see the sunrise. And then on the way back, he stopped at his father's grave.
My dad was my best friend and probably the best teacher I ever had, and I knew that very, very early, and I appreciated that.
Hi, Pop.
Do you talk to him when you go?
Oh, sure. I said thank you. And his stone is this big, buried in some grass. One of my objectives in life is to make my dad immortal. His definition of immortality is the influence he has on your grandchildren.
He honors his father the most if what his father taught him lives through the next generation, because we don't know when the end is, and every day is a gift.
Until you are in touch with your death, you aren't alive. I have been in touch with my death ever since my first heart attack. My brother was driving me to Wolfboro, and he says, "Are you afraid of dying?" And I said, "No, I just don't want to. I'm not afraid of it." One of the tricks in growing old comfortably is to do something new. One of the characteristics of doing things new is you have never been there yet, which implies that I'm going to get there, wherever there is.
There's a family tree, but on the bottom of it, it's inscribed, "I am who I am because of the people who came before me."
I'm ready to die. I got too many things I'd like to be able to do. But I'm satisfied. I had to swallow hard when I cut the first plank. Yeah, but there wasn't any question.
When he realized that that boat wasn't salvageable in the way that he needed it to be salvageable, he made the decision.
And I tried to give it away to some people, to about 8 or 10 groups of people who would do with it the same as I had been doing.
He so very much wanted that boat to be in the hands of kids.
So I finally found a Boy Scout troop right here in Alton, a little ironic, who said, "Okay, we'll do it."
He needed it used, and it needed to be used because that's about love as well.
So they started having their scout meetings here Monday nights, and the activity for the troop meeting was to work on the boat and get it ready for the spring. The normal annual routine is to make sure that all the planks are solid. Donk, 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 donk. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Donk, donk, donk. Uh-oh. So I took that plank off and with a screwdriver put my finger right through one of those ribs. I have a choice. Am I going to give this to a bunch of Boy Scouts and then read in the newspaper 3 years from now it didn't make it through the storm? And so now what are you going to do with it?
So I passed by it a few times and saw it sitting there up on its cradle. And then one day I passed by on this one particular day, and it was over on its side.
Here it goes.
Then I continued on my way into town thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if he needs help. The thing fell over. What does this mean? How the heck do you get that back up there? My next image is going by and seeing, it was almost like an egg being cracked open. That it seemed to me, and I don't know if this is true or just my created memory, but it seemed to me like the hole was just split in half. And I thought, oh, what's going on there? Still didn't really piece it together. And then I saw him out there one day sort of moving around with a saw in his hand. And I realized then he's cutting it up. This is it. He's cutting up this labor of love.
It began as inspiration. The possibility a picture in your mind.
It was both beautiful and sad in the same moment. It was beautiful because he wouldn't have been doing it if it hadn't been right for him. And sad because it's a passing. It's an end of something.
Boats have lives and they touch lives, and they're so intertwined with so many lives, both those of their builders and those that use them.
Where is the name board now? Does he have it? Good. I hoped that hadn't deteriorated so that had to go up in smoke too.
You don't want to cut up the transom. Is that because you don't want to do that today, or because you want to save the transom?
Well, I think the transom serves as a gravestone. I thought that the nameplate would, but it doesn't.
That's a tough thing, to have a boat be such a part of your life and love it, and then have it come to that.
Let it go, let it change, set it free. You are a teacher of truth. From deep in your soul, you lead by how you live. So entering the space of grace,